Good morning and welcome to For the Record. I'm Mark Koehn, filling in for Neil Heinen. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Listen to this. Nationally, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18. And we are certainly not isolated here in southern Wisconsin. And sexual abuse is just one of 4 common types of child abuse. Safe Harbor opened its doors in 1999 and has helped thousands of victims of child abuse. And joining me on For the Record this morning is Jennifer Ginsburg, the program manager and forensics interviewer for Safe Harbor, and Kathy Cornell, the clinical director of the Oasis program of the Canopy Center. That's a lot of words, but we'll straighten it all out here. Jennifer, let's start with you. What is Safe Harbor? Let's define who we are.
Sure. So Safe Harbor is a child advocacy center. We're the only child advocacy center in Dane County, and we work with law enforcement and child protection to help facilitate investigations of child abuse. And we are the place where law enforcement and child protection will bring a child, if they're concerned about child abuse, they'll bring the child to Safe Harbor, where the child will receive a forensic interview, where the child talks about what happened, and the interview is watched through a camera by the investigative team, who then can make decisions on how best to serve the child. And then we have a family advocate at Safe Harbor who works with the non-offending caregiver to offer support and services. So we're kind of one of the first stops that the investigators would make when they're looking into a concern about child maltreatment.
What is the benefit of going to Safe Harbor?
You know, the benefits are many. So before Safe Harbor, a child would be interviewed multiple times in multiple places, and that could be in the back of a police car or in the principal's office and all kinds of places where, you know, kids already worry that they're going to get in trouble and that they've done something wrong. So nothing like being interviewed in the back of a police car to, you know, exacerbate that feeling. So Safe Harbor is a safe, child-friendly place where the investigators bring the child, so the child feels that they're safe and they're reassured that they're not in trouble, and then they're interviewed by a trained interviewer who knows how to interview children in a neutral, non-leading, supportive way, and in a way that the children feel safe and that they're not in trouble.
We're looking at some video of it. I mean, it's very kid-friendly.
Child-friendly, yes, absolutely.
And then a panel of experts is watching this video, so they don't have to be interviewed by 9 people.
Exactly. So they're interviewed by one person. They're in a room with one person who's the forensic interviewer. It's probably 80% of the time that's me. And then we have cameras so that the investigative team, the people who are making the decisions about this child and the case, are watching the interview on a screen and watching through the cameras. So everyone's hearing the same information at the same time from the child's mouth. They're not reading this sort of cold report, you know, that's just words. They're hearing the child in the child's own words talk about what happened. And then we make a videotape of that interview, which can be used for further purposes, including in court, including to show defense attorneys and other ways, again, to capture the child's words in their own voice and in their own words.
Kathy, let's talk about the Canopy Center.
Sure.
The person, the abused child goes from Safe Harbor to you.
Right.
So what do you do?
So our program, the Oasis program, which is part of the Canopy Center, we've been going since 1977. We then receive referrals from Safe Harbor for children who've been sexually abused. And so they will come with their non-offending caregivers and often their siblings to receive whatever kind of treatment, first an assessment and then whatever kind of treatment that they might need. When sexual abuse happens to one child in a family, it really affects everyone in the family. So we really try to create a space where the non-offending caregivers are very involved in learning what they can do to help the child learn, like, this is normal, that some of these things that are happening to you, and learn how to cope or take care of themselves. And sometimes with siblings who wonder, why is all the focus on this one child, and what about me? And so we try to help support the whole family.
I was going to ask, what kind of treatments are available?
Well, there are a variety of different ways that we might work with the family. We offer individual and family therapy. We also offer groups, and groups can be so helpful for children and caregivers, because then they realize, just walking into the room the first day, oh, I'm not the only one this has happened to. They look around the room and realize, oh, And then I might hear what the person next to me says and go, oh, not just me? Like you have that feeling too? So it really breaks down the isolation and the feeling of kind of a secret, at least within the group. They can really share and learn from each other.
I mean, I don't want to use the word cure, but do you heal people for good? I mean, there's some scars here.
Sure, there are many effects, and the effects may continue to show up even after we do an initial round of treatment that might last some months. Yes, then I think it might be, we might see that the child's ability to function in the family, in school, and not have the fears that they had before, some of the other symptoms of depression or irritability that is a common symptom, that then they can kind of go back into their lives and are functioning well again. It might happen that at another time in their lives when they are a teenager or beginning their own families, that maybe some of these issues would arise again, but then it's just another chance or opportunity really to reconnect with the therapist and work for a time on that work. But I think if we are able to do treatment early on, I think we see a really good course for the future.
So they can come back later on if the problem arises again.
If it does.
Jennifer, you're looking at the numbers and you are seeing more and more children, not necessarily that there are more cases, but maybe your services are being more valued.
Right. So, Safe Harbor is a private nonprofit, and so we work through a memorandum of understanding with all the law enforcement agencies, child protection, the prosecutor's office, the medical field, and who are sort of on the front lines of child abuse cases, and it's through a voluntary cooperation that they bring cases to Safe Harbor. And I think what our multidisciplinary team has really been realizing over the course of the years is that Safe Harbor is very helpful to their work and their process, as well as significantly reducing the trauma for children. So they are coming to realize that I think bringing a child to Safe Harbor saves them time because it brings the team together right away, and that we all work better in cooperation and collaboration with each other than having all these individual cooks in the kitchen.
What triggers an investigation to begin with?
Well, that's a great question because we know that most abuse is not reported. So I think that's the first thing to say is that when we talk about numbers, it's still the tip of the iceberg because we know that most child abuse is not coming out. But when it does come out, it's usually through a child's disclosure to whether a parent or a teacher or even a friend who then tells an adult. And then that person notifies authorities. Now there's what's called mandated reporting, so that teachers and doctors and things like that, like if they have a concern about abuse, they have to report it. And so they report it to law enforcement or children's services, who then cross-refer to each other. And then they go out and talk with the child. And in talking with the child, if they feel, yes, there's a concern about abuse here, then they will contact Safe Harbor and say, I want to, bring this child in for a forensic interview. And not all of the cases that they see come to Safe Harbor. It's a select portion that I would describe as, I would say, like most of the sexual abuse allegations, and then what I would consider severe physical abuse. So not every allegation that they're investigating is coming to Safe Harbor, but a portion of them that is warranting a really thorough multidisciplinary team investigation.
And then it goes over to you, and you see a correlation between success from Safe Harbor as opposed to coming from the authorities?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Most of our referrals come from Safe Harbor. Okay. And I wouldn't make, I'm not sure I could make that distinction. I'd have to think about it a bit. But I think that there is a good feeling when, so our offices are in the same building. And so when children are coming for treatment to see us, our therapists, they walk right by Jennifer's office. They walk right down the hall, and they recognize it as a place, but now they're moving around the corner to get help for the problems that they've been having. I think that they feel that they're really held by the community. I think that's our intention. I've certainly heard parents say that it felt like a really good community response to them.
And so the idea being, too, when they come to Safe Harbor is one of the first steps in their investigation. That's also the first step toward healing. And so to make it more seamless like that is our goal.
Yeah.
Truly is a safe harbor.
Exactly.
There's many kinds of child abuse, and we're going to talk about that and its treatment when For the Record continues. Welcome back to For the Record. We are talking about preventing child abuse with Jennifer Ginsburg from Safe Harbor and Kathy Cornell from Oasis. Let's just define what child abuse is.
Sure. Well, child abuse is really any action or failure to act that results in harm to the child. And so that tends to be physical abuse, that results in harm to the child, neglect, sexual abuse, and it also includes witnessing domestic violence, as well as drug-endangered children, and we even work with cases of child trafficking.
So it's a wide range of things.
It's a wide range.
We're looking at the different types of abuses on the screen here. Sexual abuse, Kathy, is the most prevalent.
Predominant,
Yeah.
right, yes. And sexual abuse really is any interaction between an adult and a child that is meant to be sexually stimulating for the adult. So it's a wide range of behaviors, including showing a child pornography would be included in that definition.
Are they all as difficult to treat, all different forms?
I think there's so many different various factors involved in treatment. So I think that treatment is going
each case is individual.
really focus on what the difficulties for the child are.
Well, in the relationship, I mean, the difficulty is when we think about these things is that most sexual abuse is perpetrated by someone who is known and loved to the child. So, we spend a lot of time in our culture looking at stranger danger and how to protect from someone scary in the bushes. But the reality is that the biggest danger to our children is someone that we know and love and trust and willingly let into our home. So I think any part of sexual abuse treatment fundamentally tends to be about the betrayal of trust, because that person is generally someone who's known and trusted, and so what that child has to do to recover from that sense of betrayal, manipulation, as well as guilt and self-blame.
What are some warning signs that you should look for in a child that something's going wrong?
Well, I think any change in the child's functioning, so sleeping, eating, the way they're behaving with their friends, if they're isolating, if they're more aggressive, if they're having difficulties with other relationships, holding back from going certain places, irritability, anxieties. So we really look for those kinds of things and try to find out what is going on.
As well as, I would say, regressive behaviors, particularly for younger kids who have maybe successfully been toilet trained and then they're going back to diapers, fearful at night, fearful of being with a babysitter, again, just regressive behaviors that seem like they had developmentally moved past that behavior. And so, maybe you have a 7-year-old who now, used to sleep fine in their own bed and now is always crying in bed at night with the parent, those kinds of things that would a change or a regressive behavior that would show that something's up.
But who's looking for this? I mean, if you're the adult abusing the child, it's the non-abusive person in the household that should be watching?
Yes.
Sure. This would be something that the non-offending caregiver or the teacher might notice, or another relative, and just mentioning it to the caregivers to say, I've noticed that so-and-so is, not feeling so good, not acting as he used to with his playmates. Have you ever thought of, what's happening?
Can a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old identify that?
Yeah, they definitely can. And, kids have different ways of of telling. But so, yeah, it's about really, I mean, that's why forensic interview is important, because it really talks to the child in their language. But absolutely, a 3, 4, and 5-year-old can. I think the other thing that we would look for, particularly in younger age, is that when they have knowledge that's not developmentally appropriate.
Yeah.
So if a 3, 4, and 5-year-old, you know, turns up with knowledge of sexual terms, behaviors, that you know, that would be a signal that that's not something that they would knowingly know about, you know, that they would normally know about at age 5.
That should set off a warning flag.
Sure.
How about for people watching this at home, if they think they might have a problem? I mean, what are some things that adults should do to say, wait a minute, maybe I am a problem here?
Oh, well, I mean, I think you have 2 pieces that adults should look at. I think, I don't think you, so the biggest piece, I think, is for the adults who are the safe caregiver to really be honest about the fact that there might be a problem for their child with someone that they know and love. So I think, you know, we often think that this couldn't happen to us, in my family, in my community. And the reality is that abusers groom children, they groom families, they groom communities, to the point that then when a child says, you know, this person did this to me, that everyone's like, no, he would never do that. And so I really think the first step for adults is to be open to the idea that you don't know. You know, you might feel like you know this person, but if a child is saying to you that someone did something, is to believe that child and look into it and be open to the idea that that could happen, and to not brush off concerns.
People are going to believe the adult.
Sure.
Right.
Never hit a child. Take a time out, maybe an adult timeout sometimes.
Oh, so well, in terms of physical abuse, I mean, there's a lot of work being done in this community to sort of distinguish about the sort of negative impacts of even routine corporal punishment. And you know, that is something that's up for discussion, but I mean, the research is really clear that the long-term effects of corporal punishment, psychologically and emotionally for children, are pretty significant. So we definitely advocate for non-physical forms of consequences and punishments. But one reality is that corporal punishment can get out of control. And so for someone who's trying to recognize a problem within themselves, it is to know that you might not be setting out to harm your child, but children can get really physically hurt even when that wasn't your intent. Because being a parent is really difficult, and there's a lot of anger and frustration built up. And so it's really about, you know, finding other ways to do that. And you know, we work really closely, in addition to the OASIS program, we work with the Rainbow Project, with Journey Mental Health, and with Family Service Madison, all who, and Family Service Madison, you know, has programs for adults who are working on their behavior change in those regards as well. So, you know, definitely sort of recognizing the problem. And in terms of, you know, I think the physical disciplines piece, that's the part where adults can be really self-aware, because I think a lot of adults don't set out to hurt their children. But then, you know, I think the reality is that people who sexually abuse children generally are not going to have that level of self-insight. So I just don't want to rest on the idea that the people who choose to do that are going to, you know, make that decision for themselves, because we need to create a culture that says that makes them accountable for their actions, and that, you know, their behavior, the abuse of children, the sexual abuse of children is fully unacceptable. And I think it's the community that needs to send that message.
It takes a community.
It does.
And it also takes money. And we're going to talk about the fundraising aspect of this when we come back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Both of your organizations are nonprofits. That's got to be one of a challenge this, you know, in this day and age. Where does the money come from?
Well, I think we both have similar funders. So the money comes from federal funders, the state, the county funding, and then, but a large percentage of both of our budgets, you know, come from personal donations. So for Safe Harbor, it's at about 35% of our money. Every year we raise through personal donations from the community.
And Canopy, what percentage yours is donation?
It's a smaller percentage.
I think it's a smaller percentage,
20% or so.
And we have Canopy Center includes the Oasis program, which deals with sexual abuse, but we have other programs as well. So those are more heavily fundraised and by personal donations.
And you have
Neither, but we can't keep our doors open without personal donations.
the
from
federal
the
and state and
community.
local money's not going to do
Doesn't cover it. Mm-mm.
it. And you don't? Do you charge the clients?
We do not.
They do not. We have a sliding fee scale, but no one is ever turned away for inability to pay. So it's a very generous sliding fee scale.
And you got 3 fun events coming up this year.
Yes. So Safe Harbor has 3 regular events that we have every year. So the first one coming up in July is our motorcycle ride. That's a great one. It's really fun. It's the safest ride in Wisconsin, I think they call it. But it starts at Badger Harley Davidson, and the information is on our website. And then on Labor Day, we have our 5K walk run, and that starts at Vilas Park. And it's usually beautiful weather, and it's a really nice way to kick off the fall. And then in November, we have our rent event, which is a cocktail party silent auction. So we kind of have 3 events to appeal to, what you like to do, so that hopefully it's a fun way for people to come together to help kids.
The rent event pays the rent.
The rent event literally does pay the rent, yes.
And Kathy, you have an event this fall as well.
We do. Canopy Center has an event we're now in, I think, our 5th year, and it's called Lift the Mask, and it happens in the fall, or right around Halloween, and it's lifting the mask, of course, on the secrecy and on the shame around sexual abuse, and moving towards healing.
Yeah, there's the shame issue that you do have to lift. There's no shame in giving money to 2 great organizations. You both have websites.
Yes.
We do.
Safe Harbor for Kids.
SafeHarborHelpsKids.org.
There we are. Phone number is 608-661-9781 and canopycenter.org, 241-4888. Unfortunately, this is a problem that's not going to go away, but you guys are here to help, and people at home can help you guys. So
Yeah, thank you for having us.
thanks for being
you
with us today.
very much.
And we'll be right back to wrap things up. A reminder, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. I'm Mark Koehn. Neil Heiner returns next week for the Record. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.